One of the hardest aspects of influencer marketing is just getting influencers to respond to your brand pitch. Even if you're willing to pay a fair rate, most pitches are just ignored. And that's because quality influencers just receive a lot of pitches each day. So I sourced some of the very best influencer outreach tips, like this one that Alex, the head of influencer marketing at Perspective, used to get an 80% response rate. And best of all, these tips work regardless of whether you're an established 8-figure company or a brand new startup. The first tip is to select influencers who are actually open to doing partnerships. Not every influencer is interested in doing a brand partnership. A lot of influencers really just want to promote their own products and services. An easy way to discover if somebody's open to doing brand partnerships is to see if they've done other brand partnerships in the past. And there's a really easy way to check this. You can look at an influencer's profile in Favicon and then scroll down to the collaboration posts section. So for example, I can see here that Peter did several sponsored posts with SEMrush, Ahrefs, and Triple Whale. So Peter's probably going to be open to doing a brand partnership. To find more creators open to doing brand partnerships, you can also use the brand radar feature. So you can look at parallel brands that sell to the same avatar but have a different product, and then reach out to the creators who have already worked with them. Another pro tip is to start with smaller influencers. So Ash of Synthesia mentioned that as you work with more influencers, it becomes easier to get a response from future influencers.
So it's myself and my colleague Conrad, who's actually off at the moment, but he's like really knowledgeable in the space. He's got some real good influencer connections, and I think what he's done really well is he started working with content creators on LinkedIn before it was the thing to do. I think it's like big thing at the moment. Lots of brands are jumping on it, right? I think Synthesia and Conrad, to his credit, have really taken the time to understand, right, this is where our audience are. Let's find those creators, build those relationships early and kind of lay the foundations. And now we've paid dividends. Like when I've come in now, it's been a lot easier to have those conversations, because when I'm speaking to some creators, they're like, oh, I've seen this creator work with you guys already. Like I'd be open to a chat. And that's all from the groundwork that Conrad has laid.
And again, if you need help finding niche creators, you can use Favicon to sort not just by niche, but also by platform and engagement. So for example, I could look for someone in marketing and sales who speaks English and has like a minimum follower count of like 3,000 on LinkedIn, but maybe no more than 60,000. I can even enter engagement rate thresholds. And Favicon isn't just for B2B. If I wanted to find moms on Instagram in the baby niche, I could also do that. So now that you have a list of influencers who are probably open to doing a brand partnership, it's time to do some outreach. Alex of Perspective. So he generates a pretty impressive 80% response rate with this one simple hack. So instead of sending a DM or a message, he just visits their latest video and then drops this comment. Hey, love your content. Would love to partner on a brand deal. Where can I contact you? So the beauty of this outreach is that it helps you weed out the creators who don't really engage with their audience. And it significantly outperforms Perspective cold emails, which only generate a response rate of about 30%. Greta Van Riel, who used influencer marketing to grow her own e-commerce brands like Skinny Me Tea, The Fifth, and The Drop Bottle, shared some pretty similar advice. In her influencer marketing template, she recommends liking and commenting on several of the influencer's posts from your brand account. If the influencer doesn't respond to your comment, then you can go ahead and send a DM or an email about a collaboration. But keep in mind that a lot of influencers' DMs are going to be flooded. And this is why Jeremy, who was previously the director of influencer marketing at Dula and now actually runs his own influencer marketing agency, recommends starting with email. He says, you can DM, but I find the response rate way higher on email because that's where they expect brands to contact them. Jeremy also shared that there are plenty of AI tools to find an influencer's email address. But we realized that it's kind of annoying to use one tool to find their email address and then have to manage the collaboration process in a spreadsheet. So that's why we allow you to add an influencer to a campaign and then email or message them directly inside Favicon. But now, what do you actually write in your email outreach? After talking with a handful of the very best influencer marketers, I'd say that there isn't really like a single specific email template that works best. But here are a few tips. First, make sure to keep that initial outreach really short. Just ask if they're open to doing a partnership. Jeremy shared the exact outreach that he uses. So he just says, Hey, I handle influencer partnerships at your brand. I came across your page and think that you're a great fit for our program. Let me know if you're interested in exploring. Igor of Ahrefs has a pretty similar outreach. He just says, "Hi name, nice to meet you. I wanted to ask if you do sponsorships in your newsletter. What's the best way to learn about it?" You'll see that they don't say anything about the company or really provide any information that could potentially disqualify them from being considered. Also, avoid asking for pricing in your initial outreach. Talent manager Syed said that when his team is evaluating brand pitches, emails asking for rates right off the bat often get flagged and placed in the likely less valuable bucket. So keep it simple and use the first outreach just to open the conversation. Now for like 90% of partnerships, I'd say that this email is really the best way to get in touch with influencers. But if there is an influencer that you really want to work with, but you're just having trouble getting in touch with them, you need to think about how you can actually add value to their audience. For example, the influencer marketing manager at Omnicen mentioned that there was one influencer in particular that she really wanted to work with. So in this case, Omnicen actually donated to his charity and then used the invoice on the receipt to call him on WhatsApp. And he was ultimately really appreciative of Omnicen's donation and their dedication to try to get in touch with him. And so he ended up doing the collaboration with them. Now the last example that I'll give you is from Lectic Bikes. So they wanted to get Ryan Trahan to do a collab, so they actually offered to donate $10,000 to St. Jude's for every day that he rode the bike in one of his videos. So during the campaign, Lectic further increased its donation and ultimately donated over $600,000. Here's the full video explaining the partnership.
I'd love to give you this bike.
I can have this.
This is yours.
This is unreal, guys. Thank y'all so much.
So this is cool, but we
Oh,
would
no.
like to task you with a little challenge. If you ride this, let's say you're gonna ride it, right now or tomorrow morning, every time you ride this bike each day, we'll donate another $10,000.
Oh my god.
So if a general message asking if the influencer is open to sponsorships doesn't get a response, and you really want to do a collab with this person, then think about how you can just add value to their audience. And finally, don't expect influencers to respond to your very first message. Be sure to follow up with them at least 3 times and consider sending both an email and a DM. And remember that you can always reach out again in a couple of months. Now these tips are going to significantly increase your response rates, but keep in mind that influencer marketing is very relationship driven. And sometimes just sending an email or a message isn't enough. So consider doing these other 2 things. First, you want to go to in-person industry events or even host your own events to meet these creators in person. It's a lot easier to cut through the noise and get a deal done if you actually meet that person in person. And then secondly, build your own personal brand and become known in the space. So for example, take AJ Eckstein. He's built a substantial personal brand around B2B LinkedIn influencer marketing. And you can see that a lot of noteworthy creators are commenting on his posts. So it's really easy for him to get a deal done with just about any LinkedIn creator. In fact, Nicole, who heads up influencer marketing at SEMrush, echoed this.
Again, I feel like influencer marketing is becoming every year more and more and more top priority for everybody. So what I am seeing is that influencers are just busy or capped. So there's more demands for them than there is availability. So that's what I do see as an issue. And how to solve that problem is to be more present. So I realize that if you're more present offline or online and you're just always actively active and you have a form of relationship with these influencers, it's easier to get a conversation going and more of a mutual commitment per se, instead of it just being a transactional.
And Christina from Slate also had similar advice.
But for the people we really wanted to work with, I had already been friends with them on LinkedIn for a while. So that wasn't that difficult. And it was just a matter of checking, doing a lot of searching and seeing whatever, and then just honestly connecting with them and DMing them. So it wasn't that difficult to do that because I would just connect as a social media person and be like, hey, we'd love to have you on a campaign, or our agency would do most of the work there for us and compiling a list of results and then reaching out on our behalf.
And finally, representing an established brand is definitely going to be helpful. It just makes you look more serious. For example, someone is a lot more likely to respond to an email from, say, Shopify, who's worked with a lot of creators, than like an unknown startup. Now that said, if you are from a reputable brand, but either maybe you can't mention the brand name or you aren't using an official @company address, then you will expect that your response rates are going to go down, because some people might question whether you have the budget to actually work with them. Now those tips are going to help you get influencers to actually respond to your brand pitch, but that's only the first step. After they respond, you are going to have to negotiate a fair price, and that can be tricky. How much should you pay them? And how do you negotiate it fairly so that the relationship doesn't start off on a sour note? Well, to answer those questions, I created this video over here where we go into exactly how to determine how much you should be paying each influencer and how to smoothly negotiate with them.